And we are live. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the channel. It's Dr. Sasheen, your host here of GenXilations, Women in Transition. And today I am reacting to the Martha Stewart documentary in full. So this is not going to be a long stream because it's live and now there are sirens going off in the background. I'm not going to worry about it. Whatever happens outside is happening outside. So let's talk about what Miss Martha talked about in her documentary. There are a couple of things that I want to say, and I'm going to give you 5 lessons that I think are good takeaways from this documentary. And I think they're good takeaways for the Gen X women because it is imperative for us at this time to really think about the rules of engagement, right? And in the rules of engagement are a blueprint of how to live. And I feel like Martha in this documentary really gives us some good, clear signposts on how to use those rules to make our lives better. So I'm going to give you 5 insights, I think 5 insights that I took away from the documentary, talk about them briefly, and then tell you why I think everyone should go watch it. Now, I don't get a kickback from Netflix. I don't care if you watch it or not, but I do think that it would be advantageous to everyone to see this woman, to see her documentary. Absolutely. So let's talk about it. Let's get into it. Again, my name is Dr. Sasheen. If you're new here, I run this channel. I give Gen X women guiding lights on their transition from one chapter to the next. And I live by 2 simple rules. If you haven't seen that video, please go check it out. The rules will pop up at some point later in the video. But for the moment, I want to talk about how you are going to get your groove back. Now, again, this is how Martha, I just finished watching the entire documentary, how Martha Stewart gives us 5 lessons to get our groove back. Now, mind you, Martha is of a generation that's just one step ahead, outside of the Gen X generation, but her teaching is timeless. So a few thoughts on the documentary, first of all. Number 1, it's a great watch. And I highly recommend everyone see it. Even if you're not a huge Martha Stewart fan, I think you'll enjoy it. Number 1. Number 2, women, absolutely go watch it. Go get in there and get yourself dirty with her, because the reality of this kind of documentary is that she owns her own voice. But the documentarian did some things that I found to be really distressing, because it painted her in a light that I'm fairly certain that she didn't want to be painted in, and tried to make her out to be the victim, and she wasn't having it. Yeah, she just wasn't having it. When she didn't want to have conversations, she just cut it off. And so in some ways in the documentary, she comes across as very like, right? But I think that was on purpose, because she is, anyway, one of the 5 takeaways I take from this, and I'm not going to take them in order because I want to talk to you about it. But one of the big takeaways that I think that we need to take away from Martha and her documentary is to remain unapologetic about who we are. Now, that's my 5th takeaway. Remain unapologetic. Through the course of this documentary, we get to see her entire life kind of cut and spliced into this 2 hours. But one of the things that we see throughout the thread that kind of is being pulled through is that she was just who she was. And that was taken by some people as being a bitch, as being mean, as being rude, as being tough, as being all kinds of things. And the reality was, Martha was just Martha. She knew exactly what she wanted, and she was unapologetic in how she needed to go about getting that. And I think that as women, especially, and as Gen X women, I'm speaking from that place, okay? So if you're not Gen X, just roll with me, just hang with me. But we are often taught, especially Gen X women, when we from a very little girl, we were raised by the boomers, y'all. We were taught from very little girls to always apologize for our existence. Always. Like, whether we did something or not, our whole existence was one big apology for not being a boy, for not being whatever, for not being something. And so to watch this woman who started modeling because she was tired of earning 50 cents for babysitting, and she needed to help out her family, and she used what the universe gave her. She used her looks to get ahead. Then she used her brains to get ahead. And that was a very unapologetic theme that runs throughout her documentary. She used what she had to get ahead, period. She wasn't going to let anybody say, oh, don't you think it's bad that you are a homemaker and you're building a brand off being a homemaker and blah, blah, blah. Of course, I'm building this. I like being a homemaker. I like keeping a house. And she remained, even through prison, through the whole insider trading scandal. They spent way too much time on that, y'all. Way too much time. Like it was 3 years. The woman's in her 80s. It was a 3-year stint in her life that they spent way too much time on in the movie, in the documentary. But I digress. Through her whole life, she has managed to say, this is who I am. Why are y'all stressing me? In the media, why are y'all stressing me? Critics, why are y'all stressing me? And even in the movie, the documentary, people would say it's totally a double standard. Like she's being held a completely different standard because she's a woman. And she is like, okay, bet. I'm going to be unapologetic about that, because what is she going to do? Not be a woman? Not be who she was? The woman built an empire, was a model, went into the world of stockbrokers, went into the world of homemaking, built an entire $billion empire, and y'all are still upset because she's mean? Because she's petty? Because she's a bitch? Lesson number one that we are going to learn from Martha: remaining unapologetic. If you at any point in time in the time that you've been on this planet have had to apologize for who you are, for your existence, for what you want to pursue and how you want to pursue it, you need to watch this documentary, because remaining unapologetic has allowed her to go from the dumps and the doldrums of despair back to the top. Like she said, I went to prison. I had a good life. Then I fell into a hole. Then I had to dig myself out of the hole. Here we go. She does not dwell on all the criticisms about who she is and how she ended up where she is. She remains to this day unapologetic about who she is. Okay, so that's number one. Second takeaway from this: own your own happiness. She's clear that she put a lot of her happiness, the things that we define as happiness, on other people. She's like, this is kind of my fault. I put my happiness out onto other people. She has a really great quote that she attributes to her dad, and not to her dad. I'm sorry, I'm going to take that back because that's not quite accurate. But she says it towards the beginning, that she says, if you want to be happy for a year, get married. If you want to be happy for a decade, get a dog. If you want to be happy for a lifetime, plant a garden. And that really stuck with me, because for so many of us Gen X women, our happiness is defined by the relationships that we have, not by the things that we create for ourselves. And because our happiness is so other focused, we get really caught up in needing other people to validate our happiness, right? Like it's just, we're socialized in this way. And because we're socialized in this way, when it falls, when our happiness falls flat or we're not getting what we need, it can be devastating, completely devastating. And she talks about how her relationship with her husband, Andy, and her relationship with her daughter and her relationship with her family, like all of these relationships didn't help her find her happiness, because her happiness was predicated on people's perceptions of her. Y'all, come on. Ladies, we understand at our core what she's talking about. We understand at our core what it means to have your happiness dictated to you by other people and needing them to validate your happiness for you so that you can go ahead and be happy, right? So in the documentary, she talks about getting married to Andy and how her dad smacks her in the face when she brings home this ring that she's going to marry this boy that she wasn't supposed to marry because her daddy was a bigot. That's a whole nother story. But she's going to marry Andy anyway because Andy gives her a sense of adventure and a sense of togetherness out into the world. But Martha was an unusual soul. And I want to know, how many of you got married because it was what everybody else was doing? How many of you had babies because it's what everybody else was doing? I'm not going to lie to you. We have these conversations sometimes in my other groups, and we talk about how a lot of girls that I went to school with, and I'm in my 50s, how many went to school to find the Mr. to their Mrs., and they put their dreams on the shelf to make sure that they got what they were expected to have. And their happiness was all tied up in that Mr. And then that Mr. turns out to be not so great. And the happiness is non-existent. And so Martha talks about that. And in that documentary, I'm telling you, one of the key things I got was that you need to own your happiness. You need to own it. And when you own it, you don't let go of it. You don't put it outside of yourself. You don't make somebody else responsible for it. And God help us. Do not let anybody take it from you. Don't let anybody derail your happiness path. Because not all of us want to be billionaires. Not all of us want to be Martha Stewart on the media, but all of us have a dream. I know we do because Gen X women literally carry the world. They talk about our generation as the forgotten generation. And the reality is that the world runs because we are forgotten, because we just keep right on going. We just keep right on doing it. And so I know that in the women out there listening to my voice on this subject, you had dreams when you were in your 20s that you put on that shelf. You put it on that shelf. And because you put it on that shelf, you outsourced happiness to other places because you already knew you couldn't pursue the thing that would make you happy. She is so candid and so blunt about the fact that she had a baby, didn't really want one, wasn't really in the cards, so she wasn't the greatest mom. How many of us had a mom like that who probably had kids, didn't really want it, but what else was she supposed to do? What other options did she have? And so that second point of own your happiness, that is so profound for us because so much of our lives, we are told and determined your happiness is over there. As long as your family's happy, you are going to be happy. We're going to take that back. Number 3, one of my favorites. Oh my gosh, it is never too late to reinvent yourself. The whole spectrum of reinvention happened with this one human being. Now, some people are going to say, oh, she was born with a silver spoon in her mouth. No, she wasn't. She was born to a poor family, one of 6 children. Daddy lost his job, no way to feed them. That's why he was a gardener, so that he could feed his family. This woman was not born with a silver spoon in her mouth. She was born into a family that was poor. She took jobs as a model so that she could help feed her siblings, $15 an hour to help feed her siblings. So when the number 3, which is it's never too late to reinvent yourself, screamed at me throughout the entire video. She modeled. Then she got into a school on scholarship. She gets there, she meets her husband. Great, fine. The Mrs. degree is in hand. She gets out of that, has a baby. Okay, fine. Then has to figure out who she's going to be with this baby and this husband. She goes on to become a stockbroker. And at a time when women weren't doing those kinds of things, this was not an issue. This was not an option. But because she did marry a man whose father had those kind of connections as a broker, she was able to step in and be successful. Now, here's what I think is the most important takeaway for us in the reinvention angle. She kept picking up skills. Think about your life right now. How many skills have you picked up along the way that you just let lay fallow because you can't see how they can serve you now? How many times have you reinvented yourself? And you have skill sets that are just not being honed and used because you feel like, you know what? I have this life and everything is fine and I'm not really happy, not really content, and I'm too old anyway. No, babies. No, 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 no. So after being a stockbroker, they buy this house, Upper Connecticut, which I think is where they live, so Westport, Connecticut. And then she goes into redoing this farmhouse and she becomes a housewife and discovers her love of homemaking. Think about where we would be if Martha Stewart had never decided to revamp a farmhouse up in Connecticut. Learning skills along the way, picking up these skills along the way. Then she decides, you know what? I think I want to cook. I think I want to cater. Starts catering. From catering, builds a brand of entertaining. From entertaining, starts publishing books. From books, starts a TV show. From the TV show, we all know what happens next. Okay. I wrote it down, 2015, this woman has to start all over again because she went to prison, lost everything, had to sell Omnimedia, had to sell it all, lost tons of money, gets an invitation to go on Comedy Central to roast Justin Bieber. Y'all didn't even know that. Didn't even know it. So she's on Comedy Central roasting Justin Bieber, and she is the talk of the town. That's how she met Snoop Dogg. And we know how their relationship has now become the darling thing of media. She learned social media in her 70s. Now, you may have zero interest in becoming a social media darling. You may have zero interest in starting a business, zero interest in hooking up with a rap star and becoming a, icon in your own right. But what I know for certain is that in times of uncertainty, which we are in right now, in times of craziness, which we are in right now, in times of unrest, which we are in right now, women reinvent themselves because we have no choice. And so I am wanting to tell you, if you are looking at the calendar on the wall going, well, my time has really passed. No, it hasn't. The lesson from Martha is our groove has gone nowhere. We have just simply forgotten how to look at our stuff, our skills, our assets, our everything that we are fantastic at, and see them as the next step in our evolution instead of just cute things we're going to pass on to our grandkids. We're going to tell them all the stories about how grandma did all these great and wonderful things, but we're not going to keep doing those things because it's too late for us. No. So, big number 3 out of this documentary, it is never, ever, ever too late to reinvent yourself. And we don't have to go to prison. Like, our hole doesn't have to be that deep. It doesn't have to be that deep that we have to dig ourselves out of it. We, in fact, can stop where we are and just go, I'm just not going to do this anymore. I'm going to go do this over here. I might fail at it. Maybe so. But I'm going to go do it because I am still here. I'm still here. One of the things I really admire about Martha Stewart is that she's like, I'm here. What else? You want me to go sit down somewhere? What should I do? Go sit in the corner and crochet? I mean, if that's your thing, then go sit in the corner and crochet. But do it because that's what makes you happy and not because you've decided that you're up on the shelf now. Shelf. Let's get off the shelf. See the shelves behind me? They're made for books, not people. 4th, where am I at? 1. Nope, this is the 5th one. Look at that. No. This is the 4th one. Okay. The desire to be seen as nice, is holding a lot of us back. The need to be nice, to be perceived as the nice woman, the nice middle-aged woman, that nice woman who's always helpful, that nice woman who's always there for us, that nice woman who fill in the blank, is literally killing us all. Literally killing us all. You know who was never nice? Martha Stewart. She wasn't nice. In her documentary, she's like, I wasn't nice. And you know what? Every time someone talks about her in that documentary, they all say the same thing, especially in the beginning. She was not nice. Devoted, dedicated, on point, on fire, focused, Nice did not pop up. And the reason she wasn't concerned with being nice is because she had a goal. She had a dream that she was trying to pursue. She had a vision. Nice more important than happy? I'm going to break it down even further. Is nice more important than stability? Is nice more important than living? Because so many of us, especially, again, I'm talking to Gen X women, but I'm talking to all women. So many of us are taught to be seen and not heard, to smile in the face of pain, to relegate our emotional needs to the back burner so that people don't get uncomfortable in our presence. And so what do? We do that. And then we're called cold, right? We're called unfeeling, uncaring. And so to compensate, we overcompensate and we are nice. We are nice to the people who are terrible to us. We are nice to people who do not have our best interest at heart because we do not ever want to be perceived as people who are at least not nice to people. Now, of course, they're horrible to us and we shouldn't be nice to them. But the worst thing that we have been taught we can be is unkind and not nice. And here comes Martha Stewart, who's like, okay, I'm a bitch. What else do you want me to say? You don't get to be a billionaire without it. And I think it's ironic that even in the documentary, people are talking about her saying, again, if this were a man, people would be like, oh my God, he is so great. Like his story is just, he's just driven and he's conquering the mountaintop. But because it's this woman, it's, oh my gosh. Oh, they took her down because she was a bitch. Like, and we can laugh about that and look at her documentary, but how many people in your life immediately check you when they think you're not being nice? How many people in your life do you check when you think they're not being nice? Because you are conditioned to think that being nice is more important than being truthful, authentic, or happy. Just saying. There's a lot of things in this documentary that I think if we stop and really unpack it, points a lot of fingers into our own lives. And that's why I came in, because I was like, this is good stuff for us. This is a woman who was of a generation that we're all familiar with. I was, grew up with Martha. She might be a little bit older than me. She's significantly older than me. But I own Martha Stewart stuff in my house. I remember when she was on television, like all of these things. I remember the scandal of her going to prison. And I've always admired what appeared to be her sense of who she is, unwaveringly who she is, and unapologetic for that. So, your need to be seen as nice is holding you back from so many things. So many things. And I want you to start asking yourself, am I just being nice because I'm afraid this person will not like me anymore? This person might leave me? Because if that is the answer is yes, then sweethearts, my sisters, my friends, we have to start asking better questions, or actually we have to start giving ourselves better answers. We have to start saying things like, being nice has kept me living in a place that I hate, because after all, if I leave, people might think that I'm uppity. People might think that I don't appreciate where I came from. People might think so many things about me that I'm not willing to embrace, because then I might not have those people. That's what niceness does. It's this kind of protective shield that says, if I just continue to be nice to people, then they won't leave me and I won't feel like I'm alone, because the worst thing we can possibly be is alone, right? No, it's not. But that's what we've been socialized. And I'm not throwing stones at us. I live in this glass house right along with you. But the reality is, we are living in the glass house of niceness. And because we're living in the glass house of niceness, folks are still throwing stones at us. We're just deflecting them because we think if we just keep being nice, there's some reward for this at the end that will reward us for our niceness. Let's stop it. We're going to stop being nice. Okay, so that is the fourth takeaway. My final takeaway from the Martha documentary, y'all, that woman has selective amnesia. I loved it. The past is a bridge better burned down. That's what I wrote down. She didn't say it. The past is a bridge better burned down. There were times in that documentary when she would look at that person and she'd be like, can we talk about something else? Or I don't remember that. Really? Huh? And she would just say that, like, really? And keep right on going. Selective amnesia. How much of the past are you willing to keep carrying around? How much of the past is necessary? How much atonement can one person need to do for things that happened 20 years ago? How much baggage do we need to keep carrying forward? Like, who's going to carry the baggage when we die? Your children aren't going to want to pick it up if you have them. Nobody's going to come and go, oh, let me pick up this baggage for you and carry it forward so people can remember what a great mule you were. If you have to leave something in the past, leave it in the past and burn the bridge so that you're not tempted to go back and check on it. She made a comment, Martha made a comment about this documentary, that they spent so much time on the M-clone stuff, the prison stuff. And she is over 80 years old. That was 3 years of her life. And so her point, which I hope we all take away, is do not let people define you by your past. They don't have the right. They don't give permission to make you have to be the person that you were whenever the situation happened that happened to you happened. Because what did she do when she emerged from prison? She kept being Martha Stewart. She kept trying to figure out how she was going to reintroduce the world to who she was on her terms. She did not bring the mantle of convicted felon with her. That's a footnote in her life. It's not her life. It did not matter that she was all over the tabloids and everyone's talking about it. What mattered was, what mattered was that's not who I am. Do we need to keep talking about it? How many times are people bringing up your past to you? And you need to be saying, do we need to keep talking about this? How many times does someone throw up what you did when you were 18, 22, 35, 41? How many times are you going to apologize for decisions made when your prefrontal cortex wasn't even fully formed? How many times could we possibly need to keep carrying somebody else's past on our backs because we are the mule for them? I loved the moments in the documentary when she was just like, I mean, when it came to some of the stuff from prison, no, the stuff with her husband, her ex-husband, when she said, "Yeah, I don't talk about my feelings very much. I gave you the letters." And they had to insert the letters that she wrote during that time period, which were very personal and very much full of what she was going through. But what I appreciated about that was she was like, "I'm not going to talk about this anymore. I've already talked about that. I've already done that bridge. I don't need to walk back over this bridge. I divorced that man years ago. But if you want to know what I was feeling, here are the letters that I wrote to him. Knock yourself out." I would say that we as women need to get to the place where we stop saying, okay, let me explain to you what happened so that you have context. Fuck context. What do you need context for? Were you there? Were you walking through it with me? Then you don't need context. I did it. It's done. If I got convicted for it and went to prison, that's public record. Maybe something in our lives isn't quite as interesting as going to prison, but I happen to know, because I've lived on the planet a few decades, that there are things in my past for which I'm not going to apologize for. So why do I need to keep talking about them? Or maybe I've already apologized for them, and why do I have to keep talking about them? Or I did them when I was 20, so why do I have to keep talking about them? There's always a beauty to our story, right? There's a beautifulness in the up and downs of our story, in the waves of our story. But I think we forget sometimes is that the waves of our story are just that they're moving us forward. They're carrying us forward. And that's why, swinging back around to what I talked about in the beginning, the beauty in Martha's story is in her ability to take all that she's been through and all that she's learned and leave the lessons where they need to be. Lesson learned, time to move on, right? Lessons learned, but leave them where they were and take all the stuff that she's learned and the skills that she's acquired and keep it moving and keep it pushing. The fact that this woman took homemaking and turned it into a $1 billion empire. Homemaking. The thing that, in today's environment, there's so much talk about traditional this and traditional that, traditional, whatever. We all know that the traditional life is not an easy life. And the choice to be at home or go to work is just that. It's a choice that should be made. In her documentary, she says, I discovered I loved to be at home. I loved homemaking. I loved cooking. I loved doing this. But she didn't want to just do it for her family. She wanted to build on it. So she starts a catering business. And the question was, how did people eat this up? Why did people eat this up? Why did people follow this woman, this affluent woman who wasn't affluent yet, but she was getting there? This affluent woman who was just homemaking. And it's because she made it every woman could see themselves keeping house. Because even if you didn't want to cook a 20-course meal, you still liked the way it looked in your kitchen. Even if you didn't even if you weren't going to go out there in the garden and do all the things that she did, all of a sudden you've got a few more plants in your house and you're tending them and they in these cute little pots, right? And so the reality of taking something that she was very good at and that she was passionate about and creating this empire, losing it all, coming out the other side of it and going, still here. You didn't break me and you didn't kill me. So now what? And now she's back in relevancy to a generation that didn't have any idea of who she was before. And that's why I'm saying burn those freaking bridges to your past. Burn them. And if people insist on rebuilding them, burn those people too. I'm not saying to set people on fire, but I am asking you to think about relationships that require you to keep living in the past. Because when they require you to keep living in the past and won't let you grow into the beautifulness of the fullness of the integralness of who you are in your transitionary years, as I like to call them, they're messing with your peace. And what do we know about peace? It is non-negotiable. And God love her. In that documentary, that woman is the epitome of my peace is non-negotiable. My peace is non-negotiable. She went through some things. She cries, not in the documentary, but in some of the news clips. She is a feeling human being, but through it all, you get the sense that I'm going to be who I'm going to be. I'm going to be who I'm going to be. And at this point in my life, my peace is the most important thing that I've got going for me. And I'm making a killing protecting it. She was on the cover of Sports Illustrated swimsuit edition in her 70s. How many of us have decided that muumuus and flats are the new outfit of the year because we don't see ourselves as vibrant and vital anymore? Because we have been told that aging women are invisible and we should shrink away from what we're going through because the world doesn't want to see us. How many of us are shrinking and we're just not ready yet? We're not ready to go back into the back of the bus where the old women live. How many of us are just not ready for that yet? How many of us? How many of us are looking around going, I still got a lot going on here. So what's next? What's next? Martha's a good answer for that as well. And this is where I will leave it. I had my notes. I'm an educator by trade. I take notes about everything. You can't really see them because of the lighting, but yeah, there are notes all over the place. We need to fall forward. We need to move forward. We need to move forward. If Martha Stewart at 81, who just went to the Olympics and was calling equestrian sports with Snoop Dogg, comes, if this woman who's in her 80s can simply look at the world and go, I'm still here and I'm going to be unapologetically me, deal with me or not. We can take a little bit of that. We can take a little bit of that, right? We take a little piece of that and we say, I'm still here. I'm 45. I'm 48. I'm 57. I'm 62. I'm 75. I'm still here. I'm still here. And because I'm still here, y'all going to have to deal with me. I'm not shrinking away. I'm wearing a muumuu and a pair of cowboy boots because that's who I am. I'm dressed to the nines because I understand fashion in ways that the 20-year-olds can't even comprehend yet. I'm starting a business at 58 because I still understand that the world needs what I have to offer and I have something to offer. I'm going to make that catering business out of my kitchen at 85 because I have recipes in me that the world hasn't tasted yet. We have to stop saying we're no longer allowed to play. And we have to become unapologetic about saying we are still here and we are not going away. So thank you for listening to my overview of the Martha Stewart documentary. I really appreciate you tuning in. Please I'm going to miss the banners. I'm still getting used to this whole going live thing, y'all. Please click like and subscribe if you're interested in more content on the channel. I do try to post every single day, and I would love to build this community with you. To all of my sisters out there, have a fantastic day, and I will see you soon. Bye now.